I remember the moment it started unraveling. Emma and I had been together for nearly 6 years. We lived together, shared bills, vacations, even talked about kids someday. But whenever I brought up marriage, she would shrug it off with the same line. We're fine as we are. Marriage is just a piece of paper. I tried to respect her stance, though deep down, it hurt. I wanted commitment, not just convenience. One evening, I asked where she was going. She was dressed up, heels and perfume, looking far nicer than a casual night with friends. I casually said, "At least text me when you get back." She shot me a glare and snapped, "Stop acting like we're married. You don't get a say in where I go or who I'm with." The words cut deep, sharper than I expected. Something in her tone wasn't just offensive, it was dismissive, like I was nothing more than a roommate. That night, the pit in my stomach grew too heavy to ignore. I tried to shake it off, but when her phone buzzed on the counter while she was in the shower, my curiosity got the better of me. I knew I shouldn't look. I knew it would change things, but I did. The message preview read, "Can't wait to see you again. Beautiful." Last night was perfect. My heart dropped. I opened the thread. Dozens of messages, photos, plans for weekends she had told me were girls' trips. Sweet words I thought she only shared with me. His name was Daniel, a coworker she once brushed off as just a friend from the office. When she came out, towel in her hair, I confronted her. She froze, then laughed nervously, saying I was overreacting. But when I read the messages aloud, her face went pale. She didn't apologize, didn't even deny it. Instead, she said, "This is why I never wanted marriage. You're too controlling. I need my freedom." Freedom. That's what she called sneaking around, lying to my face, making me believe I was her partner while she built a secret life with someone else. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I just quietly packed a bag and told her I was done. 6 years evaporated in one night. She tried to guilt me, said I was abandoning her, said Daniel didn't mean anything serious. But her words had no power anymore. Walking out of that apartment was the hardest thing I've ever done, but also the most liberating. She thought not being married meant I had no claim on her loyalty, but in truth, it only made it easier for me to leave without looking back. Now, months later, I see her posts online smiling with Daniel, pretending everything is perfect. And maybe it is for now, but I know the truth of who she is and what she's capable of. And for the first time in years, I'm free to find someone who actually wants commitment, not just convenience. I didn't sleep that night after leaving. I checked into a cheap hotel and just sat there in silence, staring at the ceiling, wondering how 6 years of my life could collapse in a matter of hours. Every memory replayed in my head: holidays, birthdays, lazy Sundays on the couch, and suddenly all of it felt poisoned. I kept asking myself, was any of it real, or was she already lying back then too? The next morning, I woke up to a flood of messages. First, a string of apologies. "I didn't mean it like that. Please come back. We can talk. This is an expand." Then came the guilt trips. "You're being dramatic. It wasn't serious. Don't throw everything away over a mistake." Finally, she switched to anger. "Daniel isn't who you think he island." That last part made me pause. Daniel isn't who you think he island. What did that even mean? My mind spun with possibilities, but at that point, I didn't care enough to ask. I blocked her number. But later that day, my phone buzzed again. This time, it was from an unknown number. The message said, "You need to know the truth about Emma and Daniel." I froze. My first thought was that it was Emma trying another angle, but something about the wording felt different. This wasn't her voice. Whoever it was, they knew something, and for some reason, they wanted me to know too. I stared at the message for a long time, my heart pounding in my chest. Against my better judgment, I typed back, "Who is this?" The reply came quickly. "Doesn't matter. Just know Emma and Daniel aren't what they seem. Meet me if you want proof." A location followed a small cafe on the edge of town. Every instinct screamed that this was a bad idea, but after everything I'd just discovered, I couldn't ignore it. Curiosity outweighed caution. I drove there an hour later, my hands gripping the steering wheel tighter than I realized. When I walked inside, I spotted a woman sitting alone at a corner table. She looked exhausted, like she hadn't slept in days. When she saw me, she gave a small wave. "I'm Sarah," she said as I sat down. "Daniel's girlfriend." The words hit me like a brick. My stomach dropped. She slid her phone across the table, and I saw the evidence right there: texts, photos, receipts. Emma wasn't just having an affair with Daniel. She and Daniel were playing both of us. "They've been seeing each other behind our backs for months," Sarah said quietly. "But it's more than that. Daniel told me they're planning to move in together. They've been talking about leaving us both like we're disposable. Hearing it out loud was worse than reading those messages on Emma's phone. This wasn't a fling. It was a full-on betrayal, carefully planned. That was the moment I realized Emma's freedom wasn't about living life on her own terms. It was about having a safety net me while she built something else in secret. But now, sitting across from Sarah, I also realized something else. I wasn't the only one who'd been lied to. Sarah and I sat there in silence for a moment, both of us processing the weight of it all. Two strangers, brought together by betrayal, trying to piece together how much of our lives had been built on lies. She finally broke the silence. I don't know about you, but I can't just let them get away with this. Her voice shook, but there was fire behind it. They've been playing us like fools. We deserve better than this. I nodded, though my mind was still spinning. I didn't want revenge for the sake of revenge, but I couldn't stomach the idea of them walking around untouched, laughing at how easily they'd deceived us. Do you know where they're meeting next? I asked. Sarah hesitated, then pulled up her phone. Yes, he told me he had to work late tomorrow, but his location sharing is still on. He'll be with her. A cold clarity washed over me. I didn't want to stoop to their level, but I also couldn't just quietly fade into the background of their new life. Then maybe we show up, I said slowly. Not screaming, not causing a scene, just letting them see that the game's over. Sarah's eyes narrowed, and for the first time that night, she smiled. I liked that idea. We sat there for another hour, making a plan not to destroy them, but to expose them. If Emma and Daniel wanted freedom so badly, we would give it to them. But it would come with the price of losing the people they thought would always be there as backup. When I left the cafe, I felt strangely lighter. Still broken, yes, but no longer powerless. For the first time since Emma's words, "You don't control me," I realized she was right. I didn't control her, but I did control what I would tolerate. And tomorrow, she was going to learn that lesson. The next evening felt like walking into a storm I'd been dreading but couldn't avoid. Sarah texted me Daniel's location, sure enough. It matched the restaurant Emma once claimed was her book club's favorite spot. My chest tightened just reading the address. We agreed to meet outside. When I saw Sarah, she looked just as nervous as I felt, but there was determination in her eyes. Ready? She asked. I nodded, even though my pulse was hammering. Through the glass windows, I spotted them immediately. Emma was laughing, leaning across the table, her hand brushing Daniel's like they were the only two people in the world. Watching her like that made my stomach twist. 6 years of my life and she could just toss it aside without a second thought. Sarah touched my arm. We're not here to scream, just to let them know they've been caught. So we walked inside together. Emma's smile froze the second she saw me. Daniel's face drained of color as his eyes darted to Sarah. For the first time, they looked small, cornered, like kids caught stealing candy. Don't stop on our account, I said calmly, my voice steadier than I expected. Go on. Tell her the story you told me, Emma, about how marriage is just a piece of paper. Emma opened her mouth, but no words came out. Sarah stepped forward, placing her phone on the table between them. We know everything. The messages, the plans, all of it. You didn't just betray us, you underestimated us. Daniel stammered. It's not what it looks like. But Sarah cut him off with a laugh so sharp it turned heads in the restaurant. Save it. We're done listening to lies. Emma looked at me, her eyes pleading. Please, can we talk privately? For once, I felt no urge to hear her excuses. No, I said. You made your choice. And so have I. Sarah and I turned and walked out together, leaving them speechless at the table. The weight I'd been carrying for weeks lifted with every step. For the first time, Emma wasn't the one in control of the narrative. That night after the confrontation, I thought it was finally over. Sarah and I went our separate ways, both of us strangely relieved despite the heartbreak. We'd faced them, exposed the lies, and walked away with our dignity intact. But Emma wasn't done. The next morning, I woke up to a string of emails from her. Long paragraphs about how she'd made a mistake, how Daniel didn't mean anything, and how she only pushed marriage away because she was afraid of losing herself. The messages dripped with desperation, each one more frantic than the last. When I didn't reply, she showed up at my hotel. I'll never forget the sight of her standing in the lobby, hair a mess, mascara streaked down her face, begging the front desk to call my room. I walked down before they could. Please, she said, her voice cracking. Don't do this. We've built a life together. You can't just throw it away. I stared at her, the woman I once thought I'd spend forever with, and all I felt was exhaustion. You threw it away the moment you decided my loyalty was optional. The moment you thought I'd sit at home while you built a second life behind my back. her eyes filled with tears. "I'll end it with him. Right now. Just give me another chance." I shook my head. "You already had all the chances. You just didn't value them." She reached for my arm, but I stepped back. And for the first time, I saw her clearly, not the woman I loved, but the person she truly was. Someone who wanted freedom without consequence, commitment without responsibility. I walked past her and out the door, not looking back. But as I got into my car, my phone buzzed again. This time, it wasn't Emma. It was Sarah. Her message read, "You won't believe what Daniel just tried to pull." Sarah's text had me gripping the steering wheel tighter than I realized. After everything we'd just been through, I wasn't sure I wanted to know what Daniel was up to, but curiosity got the better of me. I called her. She answered immediately, her voice sharp with disbelief. "You're not going to believe this. Daniel showed up at my place this morning with flowers, acting like nothing happened. He said Emma was the one chasing him, that he never meant to hurt me, and that we could just go back to normal." I let out a humorless laugh. "Normal? After months of lies?" "That's what I said," Sarah replied. "But then he tried to twist it. Said you were probably exaggerating things, that Emma was toxic, and that I shouldn't throw away what we had over her." Hearing that made my blood boil. Even after being caught red-handed, Daniel was trying to rewrite the story to save himself. He wasn't just a cheater, he was a manipulator, desperate to keep some form of control. "What did you say?" I asked. Sarah sighed. "I told him I wasn't stupid, that he could spin whatever story he wanted, but I'd seen the messages. I knew the truth. He left angry, said I'd regret this, that Emma was already planning a future with him, and I'd just be alone." Her voice shook, but I could tell it wasn't from fear, it was from fury. "He actually thinks he can walk away with her and still keep me in his back pocket, like we're interchangeable." That was the moment it hit me. Emma and Daniel weren't just careless. They were arrogant enough to believe we'd always be there as their safety nets. "Then maybe it's time we stop being the ones reacting," I said quietly. "Maybe it's time they get a taste of what it feels like when the truth follows them, not us." When I said those words, Sarah went quiet for a long moment. Then I heard her exhale sharply. "You're right. They've been in control this whole time, lying, manipulating, thinking we'd stay quiet while they played house. Maybe it's time they face consequences they can't wriggle out of." We met up again that evening, this time at a quiet park. Sitting on a bench with coffee in hand, we laid everything out. Between the two of us, we had proof. Screenshots of texts, location data, receipts, even photos. It wasn't about shaming them publicly. We weren't interested in drama for the sake of it. But we realized something important. Daniel and Emma had built their shiny little affair on a foundation of lies. Not just to us, but to everyone around them. Sarah told me Daniel had been lying to his boss, claiming he needed late nights for client work, when really he was sneaking out with Emma. I knew for a fact Emma had lied to her family, pretending I was still the loyal partner she could show off at gatherings. "Maybe the truth needs to reach the people they can't lie to anymore," Sarah said. At first, I hesitated. Part of me wanted to just walk away and never look back. But another part, the part that still felt the sting of Emma telling me I didn't have a say, like I was disposable, wanted closure. Real closure. So, we agreed. We'd send the evidence to the people who deserved to know. Sarah drafted an email to Daniel's boss, attaching his client work texts that lined up perfectly with the locations he shared from Emma's neighborhood. I gathered messages showing Emma bragging to Daniel about how easily she fooled me, then forwarded them to her sister, the one who always praised me for being good for Emma. "Is that best with ovary to Areazar?" We didn't embellish. We didn't add venom. We just sent the raw truth and let it speak for itself. As I hit send, my heart pounded like a drum. This wasn't revenge, it was accountability. What neither of us expected, though, was just how fast the fallout would come. The fallout came faster than I thought possible. The very next morning, Sarah called me, her voice buzzing with a strange mix of nerves and satisfaction. "You're not going to believe this," she said. "Daniel's boss called me. He got dragged into HR first thing today. Apparently, the company takes falsifying client work very seriously." I almost laughed. The man who thought he was untouchable was finally being forced to answer for his lies, not just in his personal life, but in his career. "What did he say to you?" I asked. "He tried calling me after the meeting," Sarah said. "Left a voicemail begging me to fix this as if I'd swoop in and save his job after everything he's done. He actually said I was ruining his life. Can you imagine?" Meanwhile, Emma's side unraveled just as quickly. By afternoon, I got a message from her sister. "I had no idea. She told us you were the problem. Thank you for being honest. I'm so sorry you went through this. That hit me harder than I expected. For years, Emma had painted herself as the free spirit and me as the one holding her back. Now, the truth was out, and even her own family couldn't deny what she'd done. By evening, Emma herself called me from an unknown number. Against my better judgment, I picked up. Her voice was frantic, almost shrill. "Why would you involve my family? Why would you humiliate me like this?" I stayed calm. "I didn't humiliate you, Emma. You did that yourself. All I did was stop covering for you." There was silence on the line, then a choked sound, half a sob, half a curse. "You're going to regret this," she whispered, before hanging up. But the truth is, I didn't regret it. Not for a second. For the first time in 6 years, I finally felt like I was standing on solid ground, no longer caught in Emma's shifting lies. And something told me this was only the beginning of their downfall. Within days, their so-called perfect world started collapsing piece by piece. Sarah updated me first. Daniel had been placed on leave while HR investigated. Rumors spread quickly in his office. Co-workers whispering about falsified reports, shady excuses, and the mysterious woman he'd been sneaking off to see. His polished image as the dependable employee cracked almost overnight. On Emma's side, the family backlash hit even harder. Her sister texted me again. She came over today in tears. Mom and Dad told her she needed to take responsibility instead of blaming everyone else. She stormed out. When I saw that message, I pictured Emma, the woman who once held her freedom above everything, finally realizing that freedom without honesty leaves you with nothing. 2 nights later, she showed up outside my hotel again. This time, though, she wasn't crying. She was furious. Her hands were shaking as she pointed at me. "You think you've won? You think ruining my life makes you better than me?" I stayed calm. "I didn't ruin anything. You did that yourself. I just stopped being your cover story." Her voice cracked into a scream. "He's all I have left now, and you couldn't even let me keep that." That sentence said it all. She hadn't cared about me, or Sarah, or even Daniel. She only cared about never being left empty-handed. I didn't argue. I just walked away, leaving her yelling in the parking lot. For the first time in years, I felt nothing for her. Not love, not anger, not even sadness. Just nothing. But the story wasn't finished yet. The very next day, Sarah called me with news that would put the final nail in Daniel and Emma's fantasy. When Sarah called, her voice carried that edge of disbelief again, the same tone she had when she first told me about Daniel's lies. "You're not going to believe this," she said. Daniel got fired. Not suspended. Fired. HR finished their review, and apparently, he'd been using company resources to cover his tracks. He'd even expensed a few of his dates with Emma as client dinners. I nearly dropped my phone. The arrogance of it was unreal. "So he's really done?" "Completely," Sarah confirmed. "No job, no reputation. And the kicker? Word's already spreading in his industry. Good luck finding another position anytime soon." As if on cue, my own phone buzzed with an email. It was from Emma. The subject line read, "You got what you wanted." Against my better judgment, I opened it. Her message was bitter, venom disguised as self-pity. She blamed me for destroying Daniel's career, for turning her family against her, for ruining her chance at happiness. Not once did she mention the word sorry. Not once did she admit fault. I didn't even reply. I just closed it, hit delete, and blocked the address. Later that night, Sarah and I met again. There was no satisfaction in our voices, no gloating, just a quiet sense that justice had finally balanced the scales. "We didn't ruin them," Sarah said softly. "They did it themselves. We just stopped shielding them from the fallout." I nodded, feeling the weight I'd been carrying for months finally loosen its grip. Emma had lost her safety net. Daniel had lost his career. And me? I'd finally gained something I hadn't realized I'd been missing all along, peace. But even as I thought it was over, Sarah leaned closer and said, "There's one more thing you should know about Emma." Sarah's eyes flickered with hesitation before she spoke. "I didn't want to tell you this until I was sure. But Emma wasn't just seeing Daniel. For a second, I thought I'd misheard her." "What do you mean?" "She had someone else, too," Sarah said firmly. "One of Daniel's coworkers. I only found out because when everything blew up at his job, people started talking. Turns out, Emma's name came up more than once, and not in a flattering way. It felt like the air got sucked out of my lungs. As bad as everything already was, I'd still clung to this idea that at least her betrayal had been focused, that Daniel was the affair. But hearing this, it meant she hadn't just lied to me. She'd been lying to everyone. juggling stories and playing people against each other like it was a game. Sarah continued, her tone sharp. She told Daniel she was all in, told you she wasn't ready for marriage. And meanwhile, she was sneaking around with someone else. None of it was real. Not a single word. For a long time, I didn't say anything. I just stared at the ground, realizing the truth. Emma hadn't been afraid of commitment. She was addicted to chaos, to attention, to knowing someone would always be there, even when she was betraying them. And suddenly, her desperate words from the hotel lobby, "He's all I have left now," sounded even more hollow. Because even then, even with Daniel, she hadn't been faithful. Sarah touched my arm gently. "I know this hurts, but maybe it's what you need. Proof that walking away wasn't just the right choice, it was the only choice." She was right. For the first time, I felt no lingering doubt, no second guessing, no what ifs. Emma's mask was gone, and behind it, there was nothing but lies. But just when I thought I had heard it all, something else happened. Something that dragged Emma back into my life, one final time. It happened a week later, just when I thought the storm had finally passed. I was home, finally sleeping soundly again, when a pounding at my door jolted me awake. My stomach sank. I already knew who it was. I opened the door, and there stood Emma. Her hair was a mess, her clothes wrinkled, her eyes wild like she hadn't slept in days. She pushed past me without asking, her voice rising almost immediately. "You ruined everything. Daniel's gone, my family won't even answer my calls, and everyone at his company thinks I'm a joke." I stood there, letting her words crash against me like waves. For the first time they didn't hurt, they just sounded empty. "You did this to yourself, Emma," I said quietly. She spun around, tears in her eyes. "Don't you get it? I only wanted freedom because I was scared. I didn't want to feel trapped, but I loved you. I still love you. Please, just give me another chance." Her voice cracked, but I felt nothing. Not love, not hate, just a cold clarity. I thought about Sarah's words, about the coworkers whispering, about every night Emma had chosen lies over honesty. And I knew there was no going back. "No, Emma," I said firmly. "You don't love me. You love the idea of someone standing by while you do whatever you want. That's not love. That's selfishness." She broke down completely then, sobbing into her hands. For a moment, I almost pitied her. But pity wasn't reason enough to reopen the door she had slammed shut herself. I grabbed her coat from the chair and placed it gently in her arms. "It's time for you to go." Her cries echoed as I guided her out the door and closed it behind her. And with that final click of the lock, it felt like I'd sealed away 6 years of lies, pain, and betrayal. I leaned against the door, exhaling deeply. For the first time, I wasn't weighed down by what-ifs or regrets. Emma's chaos was no longer mine to carry. As I stood there in the silence, a thought struck me. Freedom wasn't what Emma had been chasing all along. Freedom was what I had just claimed back for myself. And this time, I wasn't going to waste it.